What's up, guys? Welcome back to Uncut Hoops. In this video, I'm going to walk you through all 6 of Michael Jordan's NBA Finals appearances. I'm going to rank them 1 through 6, starting at 6 and going to 1. And for these rankings, I do have some criteria. At number 1, I have clutch moments. At number 2, I have statistical greatness. At number 3, I have records broken. At number 4, I have iconic plays. And number 5, and probably most important, I have context. So with that being said, here's number 6. So Michael Jordan's worst NBA Finals comes in 1996 when the Bulls would face the Seattle Supersonics, who had 3 All-Star caliber players in Shawn Kemp, Gary Payton, and Detlef Schrempf. Now, this is Jordan's worst finals because he really struggled in games 4 through 6, but in the first 3 games it was typical MJ. He averaged 31 points per game, 5.3 rebounds, 5 assists, and shot 46% from the field. The Bulls would win games 1 and 3 in blowout fashion, but game 2 was the closest game up to that point. And in this game, Michael Jordan would close it out in the fourth quarter, scoring 5 of the Bulls' last 7 points, and the Bulls would win the first 3 games pretty easily. Now in games 4 through 6, MJ would go into a shooting slump. This was due to multiple factors, not only Gary Payton getting put on him, but also because the Bulls had a lot of injuries in the roster, and Scottie Pippen, Steve Kerr, they were not hitting their outside jump shots. If you don't believe me, listen to Bob Costas, a guy who was at the 1996 Finals.
I'm Bob Costas. That uncertainty surrounding the Chicago Bulls stems not just from the 2 straight defeats in Seattle. Only the second time this season the Bulls have lost consecutive games. Those games are over, but some of the Bulls' problems may not be. Ron Harper, very effective in the first 2 games here in Chicago, was virtually a spectator in Seattle because of an ailing knee that will require surgery at season's end. With knee and especially ankle ailments, Scottie Pippen can't explode to the basket, so the defense lays back and dares him to hit from the outside. So far, he hasn't, shooting under 33% and just 6 for 32 from three-point range. Steve Kerr is healthy, but his jump shot isn't. Usually he thrives on the open shots created by the double teams on Michael Jordan. But in this series, he's been miserable from downtown. 3 for 20 from outside the arc. Tony Kukoc excelled early against Seattle, but in Game 5, he couldn't pick up much of the slack, shooting just 5 of 13. All of this leaves Seattle, an excellent defensive team to begin with, double and triple teaming Jordan with near impunity.
Now, despite all those injuries and the terrible shooting all around, Michael Jordan would lead the Bulls to win this championship. It wasn't pretty, but he still got the job done, and that is Michael Jordan. He always gets the job done. Next up, we have Michael Jordan's 5th best finals. This is the 1992 finals, where he'd face off against the Portland Trailblazers. And this Blazers team was led by Clyde Drexler, Terry Porter, and Kevin Duckworth, and they had a good supporting cast with Danny Ainge, Cliff Robinson, and Buck Williams. Now, this Blazers team was very experienced. They had made 2 Western Conference Finals, an NBA Finals appearance, in just 3 previous years. Now, the main matchup heading into this series was obviously Jordan versus Drexler, and the media was kind of questioning who was better, and some did lean towards Drexler because he had a better 3-point shot. Now, if you know Michael Jordan, he does not like criticism, and he doesn't like thinking anyone's better than him, so heading into Game 1, he was determined to come out and prove he could shoot the 3-point shot, and prove that he was better than Drexler. And as you'll see throughout the series, Michael Jordan definitely proved that. But in this Game 1, it was very evident, as he made 6 threes, an NBA Finals record at that point, and had 35 first-half points. It's still a Finals record to this day. The Bulls would win by 33 points, and Michael Jordan only scored 4 points in the second half, mainly because it was such a blowout, and this is the legendary shrug game that I'm sure you already knew. Now, the Bulls did win Game 1 by 33 points, but the Blazers would actually win 2 of the next 3 games, evening the series at 2 games apiece. And Game 5 is extremely important in determining who wins a series, and here's the facts on that. In a 2-2 series tie, an away team winning Game 5 gains an enormous 28% chance increase of winning this series, and a home team winning Game 5 has an increase of 19.9%. But a loss for the home team would drop them from winning this series at 44.8% to only 16%. So in summary, Game 5 is very important in determining who wins a series in a best of 7. Now, if you're a Bulls fan back then, you have supreme confidence that Michael Jordan would show up, and in this game, he absolutely did show up, and this is one of his most forgotten games. It's hard to even see people mentioning this game, but he dropped 46 points on 60.9% shooting in Game 5, and the Bulls would win by 13 points. I don't know why people don't talk about this game more. That's one of the most efficient scoring games in NBA Finals history, and it's super impressive that Michael Jordan was able to put up 46 points on 61% shooting in a crucial Game 5. And Game 6 was a do or die for Portland as they were down 3-2, and in this game, Portland got off to a really fast start and they even took a 15-point lead in the third quarter, and they led the game for 44 total minutes. That means the Bulls only led this game for 4 minutes, which is kind of insane, and the Bulls' comeback was started by Scottie Pippen on the bench. But in the fourth quarter, the final 4 minutes, Michael Jordan Wood scored 10 of the Bulls' last 12 points, and he had 2 crucial free throws at the line.
The Bulls lead by 2. Free throw.
As the Bulls were only up by 2 points, and he sealed the deal, giving them a 4-point lead. Now, when people ask why is Michael Jordan 6-0 in the finals, and why is he so clutch, this is the reason why. He shows up in the biggest moment on the biggest stage, and just looking at games 5 and 6 and his averages, he averaged 39.5 points per game, 4.5 rebounds, 4.0 assists, a ridiculous 57% shooting from the field, a ridiculous 57% from 3, and 87% from the line. So I mean, Michael Jordan showed up in the 2 biggest games of the season that were must-win games for the Bulls. Next up, we have Michael Jordan's 4th best finals series, and that's the 1991 finals, where he'd face off against Magic Johnson and the Los Angeles Lakers. And this was really hyped up as a matchup to be Magic versus Jordan, and to see who was the best player in the NBA. Seeing as Jordan did win the MVP in 91, and Magic finished second, in the previous 2 years, Magic actually won 2 MVPs back-to-back. So this really was Magic versus Jordan, the 2 best players in the NBA going head-to-head. And in Game 1, Magic Johnson would have a triple-double, and he'd lead the Lakers to a 2-point victory. And in this game, Michael Jordan actually missed a crucial game winner that went in and out. And I just want to specify one thing. If you actually watch this game, Michael Jordan did guard Magic Johnson, and he did a really good job. And he actually did guard Magic for the majority of this series. It's a really big myth that Scottie Pippen somehow took over the assignment of Magic Johnson solely. That's just not true. Michael Jordan actually did guard Magic the majority of this series. And if you ever hear anyone say that, just go watch the series and you'll understand that. But that is besides the point. Now in Game 2, the Bulls would bounce back and they would absolutely blow out the Lakers by 21 points. And in this game, Michael Jordan had 33 points, 13 assists, and 7 rebounds. But more importantly, he had 2 signature moments as he made 13 straight shots, an NBA Finals record till this day. He shot 15 of 18 from the field for 83%. And he also had the famous up and under layup. That is another signature moment for Michael Jordan in the NBA Finals. So Game 2 was definitely all Chicago as they tied the series at 1-1. Now in Game 3, Michael Jordan did not shoot nearly as good. He only shot 39% from the field, but late in the fourth quarter when they needed a crucial bucket, he was able to drive the full length of the court and hit a pull-up jump shot to tie the game at 93 apiece.
And here's Jordan on the pull-up. Yes! And the game is tied!
And send the game into overtime. And once the Bulls were in overtime, Michael Jordan would score 6 of the 12 points, leading the Bulls to a crucial Game 3 victory. And Michael Jordan and the Bulls would never look back as they rode the momentum from Game 3 into Games 4 and 5, as Jordan averaged 29 points per game, 12 assists, 3 steals, and 5 rebounds in those last 2 games, and the Bulls won their first championship, Michael Jordan winning Finals MVP. Next up, we have Michael Jordan's 3rd best finals series ever, and I think it's the 1998 finals. Some people might disagree with this just because of the sheer clutchness of that last shot in Utah, but I'm going to walk you guys through this series, and you might kind of come to the same conclusion I did. This wasn't Michael Jordan's absolute best series, but it still was a great series nonetheless. So in this series, the Bulls and Jazz would split the first 2 games in Utah, but in Game 3, the Bulls would win by a record margin of 42 points. In this game, the Jazz only scored 54 points, which is a finals low, and it's just super impressive for the Bulls defense to hold them to that low scoring. Michael Jordan only played 32 minutes, because I mean, why would you need to? You won by 42 points, but he still had 24 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists. And this game would propel the Bulls to win the next game in Chicago by only 4 points. So the Jazz did come back, but Michael Jordan was still too much as he had 34 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 assists in this game, and the Bulls won by 4 points. In Game 5, Michael Jordan would not have a good shooting night. He only shot 35%, and the Bulls would lose by 2 points. Down the stretch, there were some crucial errors by the Bulls, had some costly turnovers, and the Jazz did capitalize, so I will give them credit for that. But leading into Game 6, this is what we all know happened. This is the game where Michael Jordan absolutely took over. And I mean, the Bulls are the oldest team in the NBA. A lot of people were picking the Jazz to win this series, and the Jazz did have some momentum going back to Utah, and it looked like the Bulls dynasty might come to an end. And if you didn't already know, this was already being confirmed as the last season these Bulls would be together, as Phil Jackson was having trouble with management and he was leaving the next season. So this was definitely the last series this Bulls team would ever play together. So there was a lot riding on this game. Michael Jordan came out and had 45 points, which is absolutely ridiculous for a crucial Game 6, especially in the slow-paced 90s. He had over half the team's points, and down the stretch was absolutely ridiculous. Now, skipping ahead to the fourth quarter, the Utah Jazz would take a 3-point lead with a little under 42 seconds as John Stockton hit an absolutely clutch three. And then what happened next is arguably the greatest moment in NBA history and one of the most iconic shots in just sports history. So I mean, just to summarize this game, Michael Jordan was absolutely clutch, had 45 points for the game. He had 8 points in the final 3 minutes, and he scored all the Bulls' points in the final 3 minutes. The only player on the Bulls to touch the ball besides Jordan was Dennis Rodman for about 1 second, as he was called for an offensive foul. So in the final 3 minutes, it was all Michael Jordan. It was all riding on him. Scottie Pippen had a bad back this series. Dennis Rodman, he was really aging. He was not the same after 96. And this Bulls team, as I said before, they were the oldest team in the league, and they were definitely depleted. So Michael Jordan, he very much did carry this Bulls team down the stretch. In this ring, they probably shouldn't have won. They probably shouldn't have gotten past the Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals, and they probably shouldn't have beaten this Jazz team. I think if this Jazz team had a higher basketball IQ, they could have been able to stop Michael Jordan and stop the Bulls in general. But I mean, Michael Jordan is the greatest of all time, and it's very hard to stop him, especially when he knows that this is the last season he'll be playing with Scottie Pippen, Phil Jackson, and company. He was definitely highly motivated to win this series, and it showed in the final 40 seconds. Next up, we have Michael Jordan's second best finals ever, and this is the 1997 finals, where he'd once again faced the Utah Jazz. And in game 1 of this series was an absolute thriller down to the end, as Karl Malone was sent to the line with a chance to give the Jazz a 2-point lead with only 11 seconds left.
10 seconds to go. Oh, he missed the ball.
Now, during this play, Scottie Pippen actually went up to Karl Malone and told him the man does not deliver on Sundays, and that had Malone rattled at the line, and he missed both free throws, giving Michael Jordan a chance to win the game. And here's what happened.
Russell, we're down to 2, now to 1. Here's Jordan. Yes! It is all over.
So the Jazz choked away game 1, and they gave Michael Jordan another chance, which you never give Michael Jordan. You don't give him second chances because he will capitalize. Game 2 was more the same from the Bulls, as Jordan had 38 points, 9 assists, and 13 rebounds, and the Bulls would beat the Jazz handily. But similar to that Blazers series in '92, the Jazz would rally back and tie the series at 2 games apiece, and heading into Game 5, it was uncertain if Michael Jordan would even play, as he had the flu. The flu game, Michael Jordan had 38 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists, and I want you guys to remember how important I said Game 5s are in a series. It can practically make or break a series for a team, and Michael Jordan definitely showed up in this game. And in the fourth quarter specifically, he had 15 points for the Bulls, and in clutch time, Michael Jordan went to the line as the Bulls were down 84-85. He made the first free throw, missed the second free throw, got his own rebound, and then this happened.
At 85, 10 on the shot clock. Yeah!
So once again, Michael Jordan comes up clutch in this series, and I think this is Michael Jordan's most clutch series out of all the finals he had. I know that's saying a lot because of the Game 6 shot in '98, but I think this is Michael Jordan's most clutch series. Now, Game 6 back in Chicago, this is a game everyone remembers because Steve Kerr hit the big shot, as Michael Jordan gave him confidence in the huddle and told him to be ready to knock it down. And if you watch this play, you'll actually see it's kind of similar to the Game 1 game winner, but the Jazz double-teamed Jordan, forcing him to pass it and make the right play and give it to Steve Kerr for the win.
Michael, 6 seconds, 5. Michael in traffic to Kerr, 15-footer.
Now, just looking at these last 2 games for Jordan, as the series was tied 2 games apiece, in games 4 and 5, he averaged 38.5 points per game, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 steals. Now that's absolutely coming up clutch and delivering for your team. And again, I'm going to say it, this is why Michael Jordan is 6-0 in the finals. Now, this brings me to Michael Jordan's best finals ever, and that is the 1993 finals versus the Phoenix Suns with Charles Barkley, Dan Marley, and Kevin Johnson. And in this series, Michael Jordan would be absolutely ridiculous, best statistical finals, as he averaged an NBA record 41 points per game in the finals. He had 4 straight games of 40 points, and he had the highest scoring game in finals history with 55. Now, this series was definitely weird, as the Phoenix Suns had home court advantage, but it didn't stop the Bulls from winning 2 games in Phoenix, taking a 2-0 series lead. Now, heading back to Chicago, the Bulls would take a commanding 3-0 lead, but the Phoenix Suns would force the Bulls into a triple overtime game, one of the longest games in NBA history. Michael Jordan played 57 minutes and had 44 points that game, but the Bulls would lose by 8 points, mainly because Dan Marley had some clutch threes. He had 6 total threes and 28 points. But Game 4 would be all Michael Jordan. This is the game he would score 55 points, and he would leave no doubt that he was the best player in the world, and that the Bulls were most likely going to three-peat, take a commanding 3-1 lead. Now this next game is one of the most disappointing moments in Chicago sports history, as the Bulls lost with a chance to win the championship at home and three-peat at home. Michael Jordan did have 41 points, but the Bulls would lose by 10 points. And right before the Game 6 matchup in Phoenix, as they were boarding the plane, Michael Jordan has a famous quote where he says, "Anyone that doesn't think we're going to win the championship, get off the damn plane. I didn't even pack for 2 games." And this is definitely the confidence you need when you're going to win a championship, and this is the confidence you want to see from a leader, as Michael Jordan had no doubt the Bulls were going to win in Game 6, and down the stretch it actually looked like Phoenix might pull it out, but Michael Jordan scored all the Bulls 9 points in the fourth quarter, up until John Paxson hit the famous shot, and gave the Bulls a 1-point lead, where they would hold on and win the series. So I just want to highlight how ridiculous Michael Jordan was in this series. He averaged 41 points per game, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, on 50% shooting, 40% from 3, and his only critique I have for him, he was subpar from the free throw line, only shooting 70%, but besides that, he was absolutely perfect, and he showed up in every single game. And in games 2 through 5, he averaged 45.5 points per game, 6.5 assists, 9 rebounds, and shot 51% from the floor, and that's the games that really mattered, and you know Michael Jordan always shows up when the games matter most. So that is the end of the video, and just to recap my order, it goes 93, 97, 98, 91, 92, and then 96. So thank you guys for watching. This was a hard video to make. I had to go really in depth, watch a lot of film on the Bulls, and find out what happened in all these series, and find out which games Michael Jordan was most clutch in, and kind of highlight those games for you so you guys have some insight into what he did in the NBA Finals, and why people really talk about his 6-0 all the time, and to show you guys it's not an overrated accomplishment, and that Michael Jordan, he was always great in the NBA Finals. Even if he had a couple of down moments, he always came through and he always got the job done. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time.